I see. Mr. DeSantis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Commissioner, when you see the email with Lois Lerner when she writes that, quote, we need to be cautious about what we say in emails because Congress has asked for those emails, what is your response to that? Does that bother you in any way?
I don't know the background in which she wrote that, so my sense is that she was not cautious. She said, I was cautioning about them, and we had several occasions where they asked for them, and we need to be cautious because they're actually going to be searchable. And so
yeah, right. So, you know, we have a duty on behalf of the American people to exercise oversight over the executive branch, and she does not want to be subject to that oversight. So I think a lot of Americans would look at that. I think they'd be concerned that she would try to conduct her business in a way that was not on the up and up. And so I just, as the Commissioner, you weren't here at this time. This doesn't reflect on you what she wrote. But I do want to know now, is this something that you would be comfortable with if this is how high officials underneath your command behave themselves?
all I would note, as I say, you make a good point. I'm not here to defend Lois Lerner. I've never met her. She doesn't work at the IRS anymore. All I would note is that she composed 43,000 emails, all of which at some point you will get very soon. All of them have already been done.
But what she's done is fine. I'm asking you, what does this make you feel? Are you comfortable that high Federal officials are talking about this, are conducting themselves in this way? Is that good or not?
My view is that records should be kept. Email conversation should be preserved. We need a better email retrievable system and a better system of record.
So you don't think the people who work for you at the IRS should change the way they conduct their business for the purpose of evading congressional oversight? Are you on the record as saying you agree with that statement?
I am on the record of saying nobody in this organization, any Federal organization, should do anything to evade oversight. I spent 4 years working in the Senate. The senator I worked with was part of the Oversight Committee, so I'm a big believer in oversight.
I just want to clear up a couple inconsistencies in your testimony. I had showed you your comment about being advised. You initially had said you weren't advised. Then I referred back to that. Then I think you've clarified that to say you were not necessarily advised by somebody in the administration. It was that the document producers advised you that it would be better to turn it all over at once. So is that how you reconcile those statements?
I'm sorry. No. I was not advised by anyone. It was my decision that the best way to proceed once we knew there was a difficulty was to find out the full context so we could make a complete report. I was not advised by anyone to do that inside the IRS or outside.
So you just misspoke in your testimony last. So you misspoke in the video clip we played when you said you were advised?
No, I'd be happy to see the clip again. My point was that was on a different issue. My point has been all along it was my decision, and I remember clearly, I think, testifying to that. It was my decision that we should get to the bottom of the situation, collect all the emails we could find, and give the Congress a full report of what the situation was, and that's what we did. We published that report and gave it to you.
I think we can replay at the appropriate time, but Chairman Issa was asking you about this specific issue about why you did not turn it over to Congress for 2 months. But let me ask you this.
I'm sorry.
If the person who's...
My recollection of that is what I was saying was I was advised about the difficulty. I was not advised about delaying until we got to the bottom.
But in fairness, that clip, you did not say it was the difficulty. You just said you were advised, and that's why you didn't do it. But we can deal with that sometime. Let me ask you this. If the person who's currently in Lois Lerner's position wrote that email saying that, look, Congress looks for these things. We need to be careful what we say over email. Let's maybe use this other system if that's not true. Would that be something that you would be comfortable with if that individual who's in charge of this division right now were conducting themselves in that fashion?
My advice to anyone working for the IRS now is that they should not do anything that would appear to be, let alone be purposeful, to avoid oversight by the Congress.
Do you think that you, as the IRS Commissioner, if you come before Congress and you testify and you either make factual statements that later appear not to be the entire truth, or maybe you just misspoke, do you believe that you, as a high Federal official, as a civil officer of the United States, have a duty of candor to us to come back and correct the record?
I do. I don't know of any misstatements I've made, but I would agree totally with you. If there is an inconsistency or misstatement, I should come back. As I said, I appreciated the the Chairman's letter to me giving me a chance to reconsider, and I reconsidered and thought that my statement was fine as stated. But I don't know of any problems, but I do think in all candor, if someone has found an issue, I'm happy to come back and explain it or discuss it further. As I told the Chairman, I would stand by, and I do stand by my testimony, but if I can provide clarification, I'm happy to do that.
Yield back. Thank you,
the gentleman,
Mr.
just one quick
yield to the
question.
gentleman from North Carolina.
You keep using one term. You say, I've never met Ms. Lerner, I don't know her. Have you communicated either directly or indirectly with her or with her attorneys, directly or indirectly?
I have not directly or otherwise communicated with her. I met her attorney on a tennis court. He played on the court next to me in the middle of the wintertime. I've never talked to him about the case. I've never communicated with Ms. Lerner. I wouldn't know how to communicate with Ms. Lerner.
Okay. Thank you. I yield back.
We have Chairman Issa has returned. Did you seek time?
Thank you.
You recognize?
Just briefly, and I apologize that I had to go to the other committee. In light of this OCS development, you have an opinion, Commissioner, on how long before we'd be able to get an understanding of the capabilities, how much of it is preserved on tapes since you began preserving? In other words, if you have 6 months of backup, I would presume that this communication system would have 6 months, the last 6 months worth of the use of these communications, but perhaps not further. Are you aware of any of that since you became aware of this document?
I'm not aware of any of it. All I'm aware is we've produced every document we have of Lois Lerner's emails, however they were generated.
Right, but OCS is not an email system. It is a communication system that has capability of tracking. That's what the email tells us.
Right. I'm happy to get you and the committee full information about how the system runs, what its backup is, what might exist wherever it might exist, and we'll get that to you promptly.
Additionally, we asked for the names and an opportunity to interview the individuals who supposedly were not able to recover the data on Lois Lerner's disk. The reason that that's critical is expert after expert has said to us in very clear terms that there's no such thing as a drive that there's no data recoverable on. And I might mention that one of them had recovered the last 17 seconds from the Challenger's disaster after the tape had been underwater for a year. The fact is these drives are recoverable. So it is critical that as you look at prioritizing the fairly simple act in our interrogatories of giving us the names of the individuals and making them available so we can go through that process. It's not our greatest desire to go down that road. Our greatest desire, obviously, is to get to the bottom and the top of who Lois Lerner worked with as she was targeting and deliberately treating conservative groups because of their values in a different way, an unfair way to the way other entities were treated. That has been a decision made by this committee, well-staffed, and ultimately, as you know, the Ways and Means Committee has referred criminal prosecution against Lois Lerner. So that is the primary target, and what we're looking for primarily, of course, is to find out who worked with Lois Lerner in her operation to target conservative groups. That's our big feature, but along the way, we certainly want to know about the disk drive because it now has become a pretty unbelievable statement that it was completely unrecoverable. It may have been unrecoverable through the techniques that they were using, but in your testimony, you talked about extraordinary efforts. This email that Mr. Jordan went through with you shows that she was very concerned with not being tracked, and that's inconsistent with a disk drive that we now understand was on a notebook computer, one that went in and out. And if I read the statements that we received on the computer she was using at the time, that was a computer she took home. So the so-called blue screen she discovered was probably a blue screen that she came to work with. It was a device that had these records on them and went in and out of your possession. So I guess the question is, can we have those names in a timely fashion? It certainly doesn't seem like a difficult or time-consuming act
give us the names of the people in interrogatories.
Exactly. And as I've said, the Congress has asked the IG to do an investigation. The IG has asked us to give it a priority and not to do anything that would interfere with their investigation of this very issue, which they hope to conclude promptly. As I've said, and I've talked to the IG about it, as soon as they are through talking with a witness they're not going to have to talk to again, they will let us know, and we'll be happy to have that witness able to talk, and we'll provide you that information. As soon as the IG is done, we're happy to provide you any information you need and discussions you need.
And Commissioner, I want to be cooperative, and I know you want to be cooperative. Names of people is a different process from scheduling when we would work with them, and we certainly would coordinate with the IG to make sure that, if you will, that we deconflict any schedule of when we would talk to the same witnesses. But I think it is important that we have an understanding of the window, how many people we're going to be deposing, and if you prefer, we can work directly with TIGTA, but in the past, we've normally made the request to you and to Treasury rather than working with the IG on the specifics. Like I say, we'll work either way.
Fine. We can each have our discussions with TIGTA. Our discussion with TIGTA has been thus far that they didn't want us talking to anyone. They didn't want anybody else talking to them until they were through, because, as they explained to me, they talk to a person, they talk to somebody else, then they want to come back and talk to the first person again. And if that person has been out talking to others, it begins to muddy the waters. And so we've said they can have, the field is open, they can have anything they need, any documents they need. We've made sure, they've always had the documents because they're doing an investigation anyway, but we've made sure they have all the documents you've had. We've told them they can talk to anybody they'd like anytime, and that we will stay totally out of the way. And that's what we're trying to do.
So I just want to understand one more time. Your position is that it would be counter to the investigation being done by TIGTA if we were to interview or even know the names of any of the individuals related to the DISC and the other activities we're both investigating. Is that correct?
That's right. That's my understanding.
Okay. We will talk to the IG, obviously, directly. I think that would be appropriate that we hear it firsthand. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, I'll take this opportunity to mention one interesting thing. I'm often asked by the press, when are we going to release all of our work product? When are we going to let witnesses basically see what other witnesses have seen? I think the Commissioner, on behalf of the IG, has made the clear point that it is often selected information, limited information that's available, but clearly you don't make all of the information available until you conclude your investigation. And I note that because that has been the history of our committee, that most information remains unavailable to the public even though both sides have it. So I respect the need to make sure the IG does have what he needs, and we'll work to make sure that we find some common middle ground. And I appreciate your willingness to take care of the other questions on the interrogatory. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ranking Member, I yield back.
Mr. Chairman?
Just a brief comment on the Chairman. I really appreciate the Chairman's line of inquiry here because we don't want to put the Commissioner in an impossible position where we're putting a set of interrogatories to him and the TIGTA has sort of put them off bounds pending the investigation. So I welcome the Chairman's desire to get further clarification from TIGTA so that we're not putting the Commissioner in an impossible position and we're not unwittingly treading in ground that needs to be protected. So I thank the Chairman for that clarification.
Well, I thank, first of all, the members for their participation. Actually, Mr. Connolly, we've done, I think, 23 hearings. We should count this as 2.
Mr. Chairman, I belong
credit for 2.
I want to say this to you and Chairman Issa.
A lot of territory.
I belong to 2 committees that apparently practice the belief, passionate belief, that no human problem cannot be significantly improved with another hearing.
All right. Well, again, interesting, hopefully productive hearing, and we covered a great deal of information. Most importantly, back to the original purpose is $500 billion in improper payments, a whole host of other issues about fraudulent activity, gaming the taxpayers that need to be resolved. And we will hold hearings, as many as we need, as I said before. and we did divert a bit to some of the current IRS issues, but I appreciate everyone coming and participating. I thank our witnesses. We'll leave the record open for a period of 10 days? 10 days. You may have additional questions submitted from the committee to you and asked to be respondent, and let us include that material as part of the record. There being no further business before the Subcommittee on Government Operations, this hearing is adjourned.